guys? Little late night. Little late show. Welcome to the transparency. You guys get to see a little something. Again, welcome live, members only, Truth and Transparency. Some more documents dropped today. If you guys haven't seen those, maybe we'll dabble that, but want to give you guys a little more of a breakdown here because there is a real timeline, and I'm very, very close to that point where it can be vetted and sourced with all the points I want to make and things like that. So, but hopefully you guys are having a good night. And let me plug this in. I will use the overhead to show you guys some stuff. But there's something I want to take a look at. And it is, Howard Bloom, when he wrote his little pages, when he wrote his book, or whatever you want to call it, these little, short stories, he mentioned Sunday morning being a morning that was like, quiet, not much going on. And I don't know how somebody doesn't think like a canine search for like drugs. Is that like a raid type situation? But what they would consider a quiet morning, I question, due to what was going on at like 11:33 in the morning, and basically who's making the calls to have a canine search. What are the protocols for that? And isn't it all related to anything, that happened that night, early morning hours? So again, not sure if you guys have seen the logs from back in the day, but there's only one out of place log, and it comes with these, the canine search because of a suspicious of like drug activity. And I looked at the like where this like allegedly happened, which was, it says it's at ED in Maine. Well, I come to find out it's East D Street. Okay. And I'm like, well, why would these be out of order? 11:13 comes before 11:33, stuff like that. Why would it be out of order? Yeah, Lippy and the projector, look out. Yes, it's Hector. Get it right. So, is there anything to that? I don't know how anybody would consider. Was it just one canine dog that went out? When you have to use canine, is it, does Moscow just have the canine dog chilling there? So I want to do a little bit more into the whole canine aspect of the department. But we're going to get into this timeline with you guys just a little bit to explain that, something that really hasn't been talked about is when were the bodies identified? Who did it? When did people then travel to Moscow? Like when they got the news, did they then get in their cars? I mean, when is this traveling of getting to the campus, getting to the house, getting to the police department? What did the families all, do? What were the police doing? I mean, what's going on? And And that brings me to Kaylee's cousin, Christy, talking about her niece and that initial phone call that they received. And they said that it was like at 1 or 1:30. Well, I'm going to just tell you what I would do if I was a parent. If I got a phone call and somebody said the same words, obviously I'm going to try to call my kid. I'm going to call, like, just like, their boyfriend, their girlfriend, their best friends, things like that. Then I'm going to actually call my niece back. And I'm going to say, if I already didn't, okay, who told you this? Where did you get this? You don't even go to school there. Okay. That are you there? Are you on campus? Like, no, I got it from somebody that like lives over there. Okay, who messaged you? Where are you getting this? I need you to give me their information, or like, can I message them on social media? But I'm going to need a name. If you can't give me a number because you guys always just communicate via apps and stuff like that, well, I'm going to need to like DM them, or like, ask them if you can give them my number, vice versa. Like, you're going to get that information of where did you hear this, and you're not going to settle for, you're not going to settle for anything other than like how you got it, to the point that a phone call would be made, or at least communication would be made with me and that person. And let's say that it was, this guy that my niece was like, I don't know, messing around with or something. Hey, I'm so-and-so, blah, blah. You said you live over by where my daughter lives, my son lives, are you there? Can you go to can you go to the house? Cause I'm trying to reach my daughter. I can't get, my son, I can't get a hold of them. Are you able to walk over there? So like maybe like their phone's dead and I can use your phone just to make sure. Can you, are you able to go to the house? Like where did you hear this from? You don't live with my kid. How do you know my kid? Who would have told you anything, like whatever the story may be, but you're going to track down where this game of telephone came from. Okay. Now people could say, oh my God, no, I would have just called the police, and asked them. Me personally, that's not, I'd want to know the person that said this, and how are you, where are you getting this information from? Like, who are these people? Do they even know my kid? And then let's say that eventually this sort of had to come from somebody that would have been in that home. Oh, I just heard from this person. Okay, then I have to talk to that person. Then I heard from this person. Okay, well, were you in the home? Who was in the home? Who was there? Are there police there? Is it all roped off? Like, what are you talking about? A party? Like, you would ask these questions until you got to what you needed, and then, okay, I'm calling the police. Okay, so, but if I call the police and I say, I would look up the Moscow Police Department number. I would not be calling 911. It's not what I would be doing. I live in a different city. Okay. If I call 911, it's my 911. It's where I'm at. Okay. I call Moscow Police Department. And I'm going to be speaking to, dispatch. Hi, I'm so-and-so. You give your name. I got a really strange phone call from my niece this morning, blah, blah, blah. And you would explain exactly what she said. Was there a shooting last night? Was there a shooting this morning? Like, and you would see if you can get that information, right? This is my child's name. And some information they may not be able to give you. But things like, okay, we'll go on our log, go on the Moscow website, and you're going to be able to see all the calls that came in from last night. Okay. But we're going to get somewhere. And I would think that asking if there was a shooting. Did anybody report a shooting last night? Was anybody, if you you say that. I don't see them saying we can't give out that information in a place like that. But who knows? Maybe they would. I could see them not giving out information in terms of like about people. Like we can't tell you if this name came through. Like whatever their protocol would be about that. Okay. But you would simply say, and then you would call campus police, campus security. Because if it's on campus, so you can look up the campus police number. And then you would call campus police. Because there is actually a difference. And again, you would say this, did you guys report to a shooting? Was there, and then if you would call the hospitals, right? Have you treated anybody for a gun wounds in the past? I'm so-and-so's mom, dad, whatever. And, but if you make these phone calls at like 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning, even like 11 o'clock in the morning, all right, there is no 911 call yet. So you're going to either be told, no report came in like that. All right, we did not take, you could be redirected to go and look at, X, Y, and Z as terms of go to the log, go to our website. You can see all the things that got called in, like, the night before. Things like that, right? And if they said that they didn't get a call like that, okay, if they said they didn't get a call like that, or, we can't give out any specifics about like people or whatever, but no, there has not been a call about any, shootings. Then the question would be, okay, well, I'm trying to actually locate, and I'm calling the person that my child also lives with, and neither one of them are answering their phones. So I'm like, can you do like a wellness check or something? Can you like go there? I don't know. It's going straight to voicemail, so I'm thinking that my kid's phone is off. I know it's a little bit earlier. They were probably out last night, but if you could go over there, how can we do that? Because some people actually like they totally forget about wellness checks, that you can even do that. You're so hyped up on, what you just heard, but let's say that would have happened. Okay. Yeah. Do you have the address? You know what I mean? So they, give the address. Now, what would happen if the police went there, knocked on the door, and nobody answered? Do you guys think they just plow down doors for wellness checks? Because that's not what happens. I'm just saying. That's just not what happens. But because the thing that should hang up everybody here is when you listen to that interview and you hear that you got this call from your niece at 1 or 1:30 and that you're being notified at 4 or 4:30, you guys, that's 3 hours. That's not 6. That's not 10. That's 3 hours. Okay. Something else that was weird about that is that a sheriff drove out there. Okay. Wait, so what sheriff? What sheriff? Like, you guys do know that when you're giving a death notice like that, you're sending out people that are involved with the case. They're not just going to call up, CDA over there and be like, hey, can you run over to this house and can you go tell them that their daughter's dead? completely different, jurisdiction. And hey, that's not what happens. Because when you're going to give a death notice also like that, if you do it that way, and you're sending 2 people, because normally it's 2. That's what the protocol in Pennsylvania is, by the way. Because it happened in the Sheldon Jeter Jr. case, except they sent 6, which is not protocol. So the 2 people, if they would be from the from this team. They would not send a sheriff from like your hometown to go to knock on your door and then tell you about something that they don't even know anything about. Because the other reason when they go out there to talk to you is they're going to ask you some questions. They're not going to grill you, but if that's what happened and people really, showed up out there, well, it takes an hour and a half to get there from, the campus to where Kaylee's parents live. So that means if you got there at 4 or 4:30, they would have had to leave at, 3 to get there at 4:30, or even 2:30 to get there at 4. And the other thing is are you going to drive out somewhere that far without knowing that the people are even home? So now, with this all being said, the timeline is completely factually inaccurate with what was said on Olivia's Chronicles with Olivia. Olivia did a great job with everything, but the order and everything and those timestamps, and being really upset about this protocol, okay, if your niece called you at 1 or 1:30 and they got there at 4 or 4:30, they got there within 3 hours of you living an hour and a half away. It's pretty fast, if you ask me, actually. But did they drive somebody out to Xana's parents' house? Her dad, her mom? Did they drive sheriffs out to Ethan's? Did they drive people out to, mind you, remember Xana's family, like, where was he? You're just going to drive to Arizona even though he's in Pullman because it was, parents' weekend? Then drive over to Ethan's parents, which they have 2 homes. And then you have Maddie, right? So do you think that they just sent out 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 people? Possibly 12? Because you have divorced families. And so everybody, okay, here's all the people. You have to, find out who these kids are that are deceased. We have to find out who their parents are. Then we're going to go loading up in cars and just going and driving. And then I said to myself, well, Maddie's mom was driving into Moscow, and the way that they said it was that she got this phone call. Well, maybe it was like a good sign because we got, when we turned on the TV, it said the unconscious person. So we thought that was Maddie. Okay. So, well, Maddie's like a daughter. So hey, Karen, how far are you? Like, here, we'll ride with you. You know, like we want to go there for Maddie if you know, if she's the unconscious person. But it would be about, wait, so Maddie's mom got a call, but you guys didn't get a call? Who, or really was it law enforcement that really called Maddie? Or was it like her friends? Was Jake notified and then Jake told her mom, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I think you need to get down there. I know there's like an accident. And then I did the math on, okay, well, 20 minutes, she only had 20 more minutes to go when like they were notified. And so they just didn't call her because they didn't have the heart to, which would be very, very hard. I get them that. But if she's 20 minutes out, that means that she would have had to leave at a certain time to be that far along in the trip. Okay. And how did you know how far along she was? Did you ask her where she was when you were talking to her on the phone? And then I heard Olivia say, well, I was just trying, you know, to always give my parents hope during the day because, you know, there was all this time. It was just like, it was so excruciating. It was painful. It was terrible. And then I saw that there was an article that came out and it said that the roommates were being interviewed. So I told my mom, like, oh, hey, they probably don't have their phones because, you know, this article just came out and they were saying that the roommates were being interviewed. And I'm like, wait a second. Wait, what? There was no article that came out that said that the roommates were getting interviewed. Like, that's just factually didn't happen. And so what I did is I went and I got every TV, every Twitter, Instagram, and anything that had to do with this case on November 13th. And when the news, like, you could like film something at a certain time, but then it airs at a certain time. There could be different times. So what I did is I paid attention to the first news break that had, because Christy talks about, she turns on the TV and she sees the 1122 King, the cars in the driveway, you know, she sees the house. And I know exactly which one she's talking about because that was the one, and actually was at 5:03 p.m. But the reporter got there at 3 p.m. She was on scene at 3 p.m. She's waiting for her cameraman. Okay, I've reached out to her because they couldn't get so far. Like, you weren't able to go like on the road that their actual house is. You can only be on the, you know, right when you turn in. You weren't able to get past and to be able to get on the road that you'd be standing on right outside of their house. Okay. Unless you came up the stairs, that little walkway. But if you were like in like your cameraman vehicle, they always, you know, that's going to be on the street right when you turn into the area. But they were trying to set up like this, you know, to keep people back, but you could like, you're not going to be able to get cars or anything through there. But you could like walk up and stuff like that. But I noticed that all these angles, they were really zoomed in. And then she says that she was there at 3. And so she started like gathering some stuff because Twitter put out 2 posts. And those don't happen until like 3, it was like 3:20 something, and then 3:44. And if they put something on Facebook, I'm trying to get the exact time, but I know that it was on the 13th, and I believe it was between 4 and 4:30, but I'm still But every report, guys, every single one of these reports, it was not ever plural. It was never homicides, plural. It was just homicide, okay? Report of a homicide. Anything that was out on social media prior to the breaking news, at when they started to use the TV. So if you saw the vandal alert, okay, goes out at 1:08 p.m. Then about an hour later, they lifted it. Okay, so the vandal alert, it's like at 2:20, 2:38, 2:22, something like that. It was like within an hour, it was lifted. That's what was shared then to Twitter. There was back-to-back posts like within 20 minutes at 3:20, 3:40. And then the Facebook post between 4 and 4:30. And then at 5 o'clock, it was the first, like you couldn't see anything on TV before 5 o'clock. There was nothing on TV before 5 p.m. Okay. So it's impossible for Christy to have seen that, or anybody to put that in their timeline before 5 p.m. because it just simply does not exist. It's not there. Okay. So in the order that is set in the Chronicles of Olivia's, it's saying that 1 or 1:30 the niece calls, okay? And then I'm going to read you guys verbatim. Okay. 12:30 p.m., Martha called allegedly Hunter Chapin because he was late to group project. And he says that Ethan's dead. 1:08 p.m., vandal alert, shelter in place. Now remember, Stephen was allegedly home. He was home. Stephen is Kaylee's brother. He goes to the University of Idaho. I want to know if you are how are you on the alert system? Is it within the towers and that's why you get alerted? Is it if you go there and you put your cell phone number in, that's how you get alerted? How do you get on the vandal alert system? Okay. Because would Stephen have gotten the vandal alert at 1:08? Anyways, 1 or 1:30, Chrissy says that her niece calls. Chrissy then said that she called Maddie, Jack, and also she called Kaylee, but Maddie and Jack's was just ringing. Kaylee's was going straight to voicemail. She then says, Stephen calls hospitals, Steve calls MPD. Christy says that she turns on the TV and sees 1122 King Road house with cars in driveway. And then this is where Mr. Gonzalez starts talking about, we need to switch protocols. The media, social media was all of this. Social media knew. And it's like, okay, well, this is what social media knew. Social media knew that the U of I Twitter shelter was lifted. And that was 3:28, and then 3:44. And it never said homicides plural. It was homicide, and it never gave names. It did say King Road. It did not give the address. It just said King Road. Chrissy then says she calls Karen, Maddie's mom. So she says that Chrissy turns on the TV and sees 1122 King Road house with cars in driveway. Then she calls Karen and asks her if she had heard anything. And Karen said she was told to come to Moscow and that there had been an accident. She was on her way driving when Christy called. The U of I Facebook was a homicide again at King. It was put up between 4 and 4:30. They say that sheriffs arrive at, Kaylee's parents around 4 or 4:30. and that when the sheriffs had arrived, after Kaylee's mom talked to Karen, because she said they asked if Maddie was one of the dead people, and they said yes. And then that's when they said that we didn't have the heart to call her back and tell her, okay, because they didn't have the heart to do that. But she was, only like 20 minutes away, okay? And then Kaylee's sister says that, she was in LA trying to keep her mom and dad with hope and stuff like that. And that she remembers updating her mom when she saw that an article just was released that the roommates were being questioned. And so maybe they took their phones and that's why they couldn't answer. Well, guys, this simply just never happened. There is no article that exists between 1 or 1:30 p.m. and 5 p.m. that day that talks about anything about the roommates being interviewed. That's just simply not there. Then is the 5 p.m. breaking news. This is the first footage of the King Road house with cars and driveway like Chrissy remembers. But this would happen after all of that. So this couldn't have happened until after they were notified at 4 or 4:30. Because it just simply does not exist, you guys. Okay? And they're talking about all this time had gone by and that it was just like, you don't understand, it was so, Steve saying 10 hours. And then Steve says 10 hours at first, then says 6 hours before his family was notified. He was notified by his family before the police that his baby was dead. 6 hours. He was fired up about it. And so why do Christy and Olivia think that it was 4 or 4:30 when they were told by the sheriff? A sheriff that I don't even know would have ever drove there. Okay? How were all the parents notified? Did they drive to Arizona and tell Xana's dad? Did they drive all over the place with 2 people in the car? Who were these people that would have been from the investigative team? I mean, that's just because you're going to ask them questions. How are the Chapins officially notified besides their triplets calling them? How was Maddie's mom and dad notified? Who called Maddie's mom and told her to come to Moscow? Why did the Gonzalez's think that it was the police? The G's make it seem like it was law enforcement by saying, we didn't get a call, but she did, so maybe it's a good sign. And we saw on the news that it said unconscious person when we turned it on, and we thought that Maddie was that person. Again, guys, that would have had to, for them to have that thought process in their heads, okay? That couldn't have even started to be a thought process, okay? Because the first time that we were ever told that this all started from a report of an unconscious person was at the 5 o'clock breaking news, the TV version. None of the, it wasn't being reported by any of the outlets, by social media, that it was an unconscious person. That did not come out until 5, okay? So you couldn't have thought to yourself that, oh, well, we thought that Elsa's good, like she's going because she must be the unconscious person. She must be the unconscious person because, and I'm thinking to myself, well, no, because you wouldn't have known that yet. Because remember the order, okay? And that doesn't come until 5, which is 30 minutes or an hour after you said that the sheriffs came, which was after you talked to Karen. Now, Again, this would all have had to happen after 5 p.m. to be possibly thinking like this. Because again, the first report of it being made an unconscious person, that was not anywhere until it hit breaking news on the television. Again, the earliest media presence in that area was at 3 p.m. as stated by the reporter that covered that 5 p.m. breaking news that aired. Now check this out. Now, again, it was all about this protocol and that how long they waited. So somebody, officially notified them, and this is their words. This isn't, but I want to show you guys something. Let's see here. Video.
We begin with breaking news out of North Idaho.
Just a moment ago, Moscow police confirmed 4 people were found dead in a home.
Xana Kernodle. Ethan Chapin. Madison Mogan. Haley Gonçalves. They shared everything. They came here together. They eventually get into the same apartment together. And in the end, they died together.
The other, let me get the names exactly right here. We know that Xana and Ethan were at a different party on campus.
On September 12th, there was a vandal alert that was sent out about a potential stabbing threat on Paradise Path. Does this have any connection with what we've seen so far?
Not that we know of it, but we're following everything.
Roommates who lived at that residence. Were the roommates home at the time of the attack?
There was other people home at that time, but
At the time of the attack, were the roommates home? Well, there was other people home at that time. November 16th. Fry had to double check who the names of the people were. And then he says other people. Remember, not roommates.
we're not just focusing just on them, we're focusing on everybody that may be coming and going from that residence.
So since they were home, was it a hostage situation? And then did
No, it was not.
they didn't call it into police?
And
so
then
were
did
they injured? They didn't call it into police,
not
so
injured.
were they injured?
No one that we're not going to talk to. There's no one we're not going to interview. There's no one that we're not going to look into. And we're going to do our due diligence. We're going to make sure that nothing goes unturned.
I know you said when the call came in, it was for an unconscious person, and also that was a stabbing. It seems, just from an outside perspective looking in, like that would be not the first thing a person calling in would think.
You're right. But the report that we got.
Nobody's ever talked about this. So here we go. This is one of the local reporters. This is her question.
And like that would be not the first thing a person calling in would think.
You're right. But the report that we got was that it was an unconscious individual. It wasn't until our officers arrived on scene, went in to do caregiving check on the individual who was unconscious that we.
So the first thing there is that they went into the house to get to the unconscious person. Okay, allegedly. So like this reports or people thinking that the unconscious person was outside of the house based on what Fry's, trying to basically, he's trying to spin this. Okay. And so again, listen to what she says right here.
And we're going to do our due diligence. We're going to make sure that nothing goes undone.
I know you said when the call came in, it was for an unconscious person, and also that was a stabbing. It seems.
I know that when the call came in, you said that it was an unconscious person and a stabbing. Both things.
Just from an outside perspective looking in, like that would be not the first thing a person calling in would think.
You're right.
Meaning that if I'm calling in, the first, what she's saying there is that's not going to be the first thing that a person calling in is going to think. What unconscious person that they were stabbed?
But the report that we got was that it was an unconscious individual. It wasn't until our officers arrived on scene, went in to do caregiving check on the individual who was unconscious that we found the scene that we found.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Heather Roberts with ABC News. Just to follow up on what she asked, so the other two roommates were there at the time of the attack?
All the information that we have from our investigation is that yes, they were.
Okay, but they were unhurt.
That is correct.
So is there any explanation as to why it took so long then for someone to call 911? You have surviving witnesses to an incident at 3 or 4 in the morning and the 911 call didn't come until noon?
I don't think I ever said that they were witnesses. I said they were there. So, we don't know why that call came in at noon and not in the middle of the night. Would have we loved for that to have happened? Yes, but that's not how it took place. So that's why we're investigating everything still to try to pull all the pieces together.
Were they one of the people, were they the 911 caller?
At this point in time, I'm not going to divulge who our 911 caller is, just because I want to keep the integrity of the investigation at this point, okay?
Okay, and last.
This is really important. Ready?
Place. So that's why we're investigating everything still to try to pull all the pieces together.
Were they one of the people, were they the 911 caller?
Were they one of the people? Were they one of the people? She slips. Were they one of the people? And then she says, were they the one that called 911? Were they one of the people? Why would you think there'd be multiple people that called 911? Again, listen.
Happened, yes, but that's not how it took place. So that's why we're investigating everything still to try to pull all the pieces together.
Were they one of the people, were they the 911 caller?
At this point in time, I'm not going to divulge who our 911 caller is, just because I want to keep the.
Okay, you divulge that it's not a hostage situation. Okay, you clear it up to say that I never said that they were a witness, but now we know that the PCA has one of them as a witness, and all they asked here was, were they the 911 caller? I'm going to let her say exact word, right? there.
At this point in time, I'm not going to divulge. I'm not going to divulge who are. Why we're investigating everything still to try to pull all the pieces together.
Were they one of the people? Were they the 911 caller?
At this
Boom. Okay. Were they the 911 caller? Were they the 911 caller? Just like, was it a hostage situation? No. Were they home at the time of the attack? Yes, by everything that we, were they the 911 caller? But who's they? The person that was unconscious? Like, again, hold on. Check this order.
So, we don't know why that call came in at noon and not in the middle of the night. Would have we loved for that to have happened? Yes, but that's not how it took place. So that's why we're investigating everything still to try to pull all the pieces together.
Were they one of the people? Were they the 911 caller?
At this point in time, I'm not going to divulge who our 911 caller is, just because I want to keep the integrity of the investigation at this point, okay?
Okay. And
Divulging the 911 caller would jeopardize the integrity of the investigation, okay? Even if it would have been like Hunter Johnson, even if it would have been one of the roommates, even if it's, another neighbor over there, okay? How would the 911 caller jeopardize the integrity of the investigation? How? Again, right here.
You have surviving witnesses to an incident at 3 or 4 in the morning, and the 911 call didn't come until noon?
I don't think I ever said that they were witnesses. I said they were there. So, we don't know why that call came in at noon and not in the middle of the night. Would have we loved for that to have happened? Yes, but that's not how it took place. So that's why we're investigating everything still to try to pull all the pieces together.
Were they one of the people? Were they the 911 caller?
At this point in time,
were they the 911 caller? Speaking about the surviving, not witnesses, but now just roommates, were they? And then the next report comes out to say the call originated from one of the surviving roommates' cell phones inside the residence. The call originated inside the home from one of the surviving roommates. The call originated from inside the home, okay?
I'm not going to divulge who our 911 caller is, just because I want to.
We didn't ask you to divulge that. She just asked you if they were them. Like,
keep the integrity of the investigation at this point, okay?
Okay. And last question.
again, stabbing was originally used, which is confirmed in this dialogue between Fry and the inside reporter, as Fry does not correct her. Instead, he actually says, "You are correct." And then Fry tries to explain that it was a sequence of events, though, which was a report of an unconscious person that led then to the discovery of the scene. So who started the rumor that would be spoke by Christy? My niece called around 1 or 1:30 and said, had you talked to Kaylee? Something bad had happened to Kaylee. There was a party last night and someone came in and shot the place up and Kaylee is dead. Shot the place up? The only person to have ever said this has never been a rumor by anybody, okay, about this whole shooting, is coming in that interview done with Chronicles with Olivia. And it's coming from Christy, who says that that's what her niece said to her. Well, if it was originally a stabbing, okay, unconscious person in a stabbing, right? That means that the person that called 911 knew that they were deceased from being stabbed versus being shot. If you're laying in a pool of blood and you're face down over and you can't see any wounds on your back, okay, and you can't see any wounds, period, to know that you got shot or you got stabbed, and you just see somebody in a pool of blood, your first instinct with stuff like that is to talk about, oh my God, my roommates, oh my God, they're in a pool of blood. Get somebody here, oh my God, they're all stabbed to death. If you can't see these wounds, then you'd be talking about, oh my God, they're just in blood. There's blood everywhere. There's blood everywhere. Like, get over here. But to straight up and talk about stabbings versus being shot. And if this is coming out right from the jump, then where does this alleged rumor start about being shot? Like that a party was shot up and blah, blah, blah. That's a pretty big, that didn't come from anywhere. Especially if it was your original people are saying what it was, so that it would have got through on the original reports about that leaked some way about the whole stabbings and unconscious, and that's not coming from nothing. That's coming from something that was said originally, and then they took things out. That would mean that you could see the bodies, that you would know that they were stabbed. Do you see Dylan or Bethany getting all up and close and figuring out what the cause of death was? Or do you see them seeing all the blood and oh my God? For example, I'm going to show you guys a picture. And I want you to tell me if you can tell how this person was killed. Let's see here. Let's see how this works. Mm. All right. Can you guys tell how this person was killed? Do you guys see any bullets? Do you see any stab wounds? Just so you guys know, that's a dummy. Okay, now do you see how there's like blood that's down over by like by the feet? Like by the knees of the jeans. Okay. But do you physically, if you were to like, walk in and see like the head first, like coming that way. Also, even if you were to come from like the other room, as in like across the way, can you see any? Are you able to see anything visible, wounds wise? Do you see any gunshot wounds? Do you see any stabbings? And the answer is no, you don't. You see a shit ton of blood. You also don't see, we're talking about 20-year-olds. All right. What you see here is if somebody is down like that, and so go to the PCA. Remember how they don't talk about Ethan at all. What's his name? Blaker and Payne, they said that it was visible stab wounds with like Maddie and Kaylee. Okay. But Ethan, they needed a way to tell the coroner needed to tell them, what was up. And because they couldn't see it from like the naked eye, they could be laying like this, so you can't see anything. You couldn't tell. But you can't see if somebody was shot. You can't see if somebody was stabbed. And so if you were to call 911 and you see something like this, and you have trained officers that, walked in when they saw Ethan, and, they couldn't tell how he was, what it looked like to be, they couldn't say anything. So then how would a 20-year-old know? how would any, you would call and talk about the blood. Oh my God, there's blood everywhere. My roommate's in a pool of blood. Oh my God, they're blue. Oh my God, oh my God, they're dead. Like, bring help now. They're in a pool of blood. There's blood everywhere. Seeing this, I would not be able to say that oh my God, my roommate was stabbed. There's blood everywhere. You would not be able to say that. Or if you did, then you know something that, how do you know that? But you wouldn't have to go too close to see this. You would see the blood. And so you have to ask yourself, are 20-year-olds getting all up, close, and you're going to turn the body over? Like I told you, we're doing these reenactments, but right here, you can't say anything other than there's blood. They're face down in a pool of blood. There's blood everywhere. Okay. Nothing's visible to you to know how this blood happened. Okay. Now,
to help the investigation, but believe investigators could be missing the mark.
Imagine if you're a parent and you have pertinent information to this, like that dog.
Boom. What? Imagine if you were a parent and you had pertinent information, just like that dog. Just like that dog.
They can to help the investigation, but believe investigators could be missing the mark.
Imagine if you're a parent and you have pertinent information to this, like that dog, and you're asking me to just shut up. It's not going to happen. I'm going to find a microphone and I'm going to talk to it and I'm going to tell people this is important, whether it helps solve the case or not. How can you eat that? How could you suppress that? Something you know could help your child and help everyone in that house find justice. But you can't force them to ask you the question.
Christy Gonzalez.
You can't force them to ask you the question. Wait, what? Okay. You can't force them to ask you the question. I mean, you can tell them whatever you want. I don't need you to ask me a question. I'm just going to hear this. What's the question? What's the question? No, I think what he means is, this is what he means. Think about it. What he means is that if the dog could only talk, the dog could tell you who was there. The dog could tell you who did this. If the dog could talk, okay? But dogs can't talk, okay? If dogs could talk, that's what pertinent information like the dog has. The dog knows everything. The dog was there, but the dog can't talk. So basically, he's comparing himself to the dog, in my opinion.
Investigation, but believe investigators could be missing the mark.
Imagine if you're a parent and you have pertinent information to this, like that dog, and you're
pertinent information to this, like that dog.
asking me to just shut up. It's not going to happen. I'm gonna.
You're asking me to just shut up. Shut up to who? Shut up to the people? Shut up to us, like the police? Or like my pertinent information, if I was to put it out there, it would, what? What would it do? It's pertinent. But hey, it may not. Listen, these are very interesting words.
The Gonzalez family says they want to do anything they can to help the investigation, but believe investigators could be missing the mark.
Imagine if you're a parent and you have pertinent information to this, like that dog, and you're asking me to just shut up. It's not going to happen. I'm going to find a microphone and I'm going to talk to it and I'm going to tell people this is important. Whether it helps solve the case or not, how can you eat that? How could you suppress that? Something you know could help your child and help everyone in that house find justice. But you can't force them to ask you the question.
Christy Gonzalez speaks.
But you can't force them to ask you the question. Well, just tell them what you want to tell them. What question needs to be asked? What question would need to be asked? Why don't you just tell them? But what would need to be asked versus just saying it, But they did get you to be quiet.
How can you eat that? How could you suppress that? Something you know could help your child and help everyone in that house find justice. But you can't force them to ask you the question.
Christy Gonzalez speaks about what she believes happened in the early morning hours of November 13th.
And went in very methodical. I think he really thought it out. I think he was quick. I think it was quiet, and he got in.
This is my new launch of my timeline. Again, everything is sourced out and has a source behind it, timestamps. But again, that interview was, obviously you could see Shannon Gray's with them.
Help everyone in that house find justice. But you can't force them to ask you the question.
Christy Gonzalez speaks about what she believes happened in the early morning hours of November 13th. They want to do anything they can to help the investigation, but believe investigators could be missing the mark.
Imagine if you're a parent and you have pertinent information to this, like that dog, and you're asking me to just shut up. It's not going to happen. I'm going to find a microphone and I'm going to talk to it and I'm going to tell people this is important. Whether it helps solve the case or not, how can you eat that? How could you suppress that? Something you know could help your child and help everyone in that house find justice. But you can't force them to ask you the question.
Christy Gonzalez speaks about what she believes happened in the early morning hours of November 13th.
And went in very methodical. I think he really thought it out. I think he was quick. I think it was quiet, and he got in.
So after after I did more digging, I came to if you're in law enforcement and you're a crooked cop. So back in Aliquippa, back in the day, I'm just using this as an example because I know it firsthand. There was a couple police officers that were on the force, and one of the things that they would do for the big time, the drugs and the gambling that was going on there, is these cops would get notified of when there was going to be a raid. Okay, when there was going to be a raid. And what these cops did is they notified, the head honchos that were running these illegal gambling stuff and the drugs, and they would notify them like, hey, they're coming. They're setting it up. They're coming on, Friday at, 10, whatever. And what you would have to do is you'd have to move all your shit to another location. Okay, so that when the raid happened, there'd be nothing there. Okay? And that's how they did stuff. And the only way that that's possible to be able to get tipped off like that, to be able to do that, is you'd have to have somebody on the inside. Okay? So and then what happens is that you move stuff. Normally, you don't do it in the middle of the day. Okay. You move stuff in the nighttime and in the dark, now depending on how much stuff you're moving. But you would need people on the inside to know that that's happening. And then you would move the stuff, and then that way your raid's coming, and when the raid comes, boom, nothing's there. Okay. And it's like, fuck, they got who tipped somebody off, like all this stuff. We saw it go in there. But normally what you do is you're usually watching the property. Okay. If you're good, you would be watching the property to see like if that could possibly like that they moved it, but people get like creative in how they move it. Okay. And they're just not walking out the door with like just a bunch of stuff like it's what it is. People get creative when they move stuff. Anyways, fuck, they could use people to move it. But if you were to do that, it takes more time than to take all the stuff and flush it. Okay, if you're going to take the drugs and flush drugs, that can happen a hell of a lot quicker than if you actually have to physically move the stuff. So one of the things I thought of was in terms of like, if it was a couple hours before the 911 call was made, what are you doing? What's going on? And then so I went back to the handy dandy Moscow logs. And lo and behold, that morning before the 911 call, there are 2 back-to-back reports. Okay. Of drugs. 1113 and 1133. But they're out of order. Let's see here, 1133, 13. And one of them has a report, and the other one doesn't. But I want you guys to take a look at something. I'm ready. Let's see. Okay. Controlled substance problem. Incident address ED, that's the name, East D Street. That's what ED means, not erectile dysfunction. Don't worry, I got that covered. It's not what that means. ED Street and North Main Street. Okay. Time reported 11:13 a.m. Officer requested case. Officer requested case report taken at 11:13. All right, you guys see that? No. $11:33. Okay, check this out. Pay attention to this. M09902. Okay? Now, 11:13. M09901. Why would it be that 9901 would come after 9902 in terms of the time? 11:33. This should be the 9902. Once again, 9902, 11:13. 9901, 11:33. Hot Ham, what's up, Hot Ham Radio? Okay, again, this is the day of the murders, okay? Meaning like the 911 call, okay? So 11:13 and 11:33, and then at 11:56, all right? 11:56 is going to be the 911 call that's the unconscious person. All right. So they come in the wrong order, number one. Or was the 11:33, see, I was like 9901, narcotics canine search. Time reported 11:33, 9901. So the 9902, it should be later in the day. It should be like the next one. But here, 11:13, 9902, 11:13, controlled substance problem. Officer requested case report taken. Controlled substance problem. Wait, what? Like narcotics canine search. Again, ED, like, this is like back to back. It'd be like if you went somewhere and then you call, okay, let's get the canine search. Like the canine search happened first and then you report a substance problem. And this was a requested case by an officer. Officer requested case. Officer requested case. That means like there wasn't like a call. So remember like the Banfield? The 301? That was an undercover, so there was no call-in for that. But these are out of order. These are the only two that come in like this messed up order. And not only are they messed up now, but also the time, like the M09902. Okay, guys, 1 comes before 2. So why is the 1113 the 9902? It should be the 9901. Then you have all the guys saying that it was a slow Sunday. There was nothing going on. There's nothing going on. Well, looks like you guys were raiding some house over there on D Street. ED Street. That means East D Street. You guys want to see where that's at? Does anybody know where that's at? Okay. You see this right here? So this is like your North Main Street. Let's see. This is D Street. See how it's like WD, like west? So it's East D. Just showing you guys that this is the street, okay? I'll back it up just a little bit. Now it said it was like basically it said East D Street, like in Maine. Like that's the intersection I wanted to give because it doesn't give the exact location. So it's closer to like this intersection, which is, so you have, this is Maine. Now check this out. I mean, you seriously just can't make this, you just can't make it up. Dutch Bros Coffee is literally at the intersection of East D Street and Main Street. Okay? What are all those coffee hit-ups? Coffee. Where did Kaylee work? Right here. Right when it like switches right over here off of like Main. But ED and Main Street. At basically that intersection, you have this. Dutch Bros Coffee. Is that the Walgreens? Let's see. The Zip Trip. Yeah, there's the Walgreens across. So, again, this would be at 11:33. I'm sorry, 11:13, and then 11:33, and this was all done by a request. This was requested by. I mean, I just showed it. The officer. Officer requested. Okay. And it was ED. So East D Street. There's A, B, C. This is East D Street. And they said East D in Maine. Okay. And suspicious drugs. And then it was canine. And then 20 minutes later, after the 11:33. So they're over here doing a canine search with a canine. Okay. So I put a request in because I want to see who was working the canine search. I mean, how many officers were working that morning? Who was where? What was going on? I want to see that report. I want to know who requested that. I want to know who possibly was pulled away. But this was a requested thing. Nobody called this in from like D Street. This was all done by the officers. Just like Banfield was done by the officers. Nobody called that in. Oh, man. They were looking for the missing drugs. I don't know. I wasn't there. But all I can tell you is that you got to be shitting me. That a canine search is literally happening on the corner of East D and Maine, which is literally where Kaylee worked at a coffee place, right? These reports are out of order. Nobody called this in. This is an officer thing. So what did the officer see? What type of body cam footage is it? What's going on? Why did this happen? Who is this? A raid? Is this I thought it was a quiet morning. And that's why they all moseyed on over there. That 3 people would show up to a concert. Like, what's going on? And so nobody's really talked about this. This is 20 minutes before the 911 call. Chasing wolves. I call it Banfield. Banfield's in Banfield. I was hoping that she'd set up her table there. How awesome. Well, this is Banfield reporting live from the Banfield. again, this is, they brought out, this is a canine search. You guys, this is a canine search on a Sunday morning. And they're over here, and Bloom is writing that it was just the quietest morning. Nothing was going on. Well, I don't know, 20 minutes before the 911 call, there was a canine search. There's other, things that I'll get into, but, and then I got Kaylee's dad that's basically like, he has information that is pertinent. That's like what Murphy would have had. But they have to ask the questions. So the captain, it's remember, it's about, if you're just joining the live, if this was like a planned attack, meaning like with like the canine search, because it was like a raid. That's why I want to get this report. I want to see more about it, and I want to know, why on a Sunday at 11:13 and 11:33, this suspicious drug activity leads to a canine search, but this was requested all like not because somebody called it in, it's because of the police officer, it's because of an officer. And one of them says report taken, and the other one says no report. Of the two, 11:13, 11:33. How long were they there? Now let's go back to the Big Daddy, which is the timeline. And I can't tell you why yet because I don't know the why. But I will know the why soon. But all I can tell you is that there are so many factual things that can be proven factually incorrect with the story that on December 27th, 28th, it was recorded, and doing the interview, Chronicles of Olivia, but the interview was just a couple days before Holberger was arrested. All of that stuff, that flowing of events, that's not the way that any of that happened. It's just factually not, it's just not there. There was no article ever written about the roommates getting interviewed. But I'll tell you what would be there is you're getting the play-by-play from people that are there. And so therefore, like, you're knowing what's going on because you're getting the play-by-play from people that are there, or you're there yourself. It's one of the two. But I'm telling you, it wasn't because somebody wrote an article and then it dropped and said, that's not happening. It didn't happen. There is no article. There is no article that is talking about, oh, the roommates are being taken in now for questioning. Okay. Then You cannot be mad about a protocol and that you waited around for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, okay, when you didn't, according to what you just said, that you got to call at 1 or 1:30. So either you got the call at 1 or 1:30 and they were really and then they came to your house at like 4 or 4:30, but that's only like 3 hours. So you wouldn't have been waiting around all day. Also, I want to know who came out to the house. Who are these couple people that were the sheriffs that came out to the house? They would have to be part of this investigation team. One of those people, like two of those people. You're not sending somebody from a different jurisdiction to say, oh, hey, can you go over to this family's house and tell them that their daughter has been murdered? And then tell them, yeah, we don't know anything, but we just want to make sure that you knew before it's going to be everywhere. No, that's not how that happens. That's not what happens. It's an hour and 20 to 30 minute drive. You cannot see the report on the television until 5 p.m. Okay? What would blow the investigation like you wouldn't believe? Remember, ask the right questions. Fry's over here saying, we can't divulge about the 911 call. We're not going to talk about who's the 911 caller. Who was ever confirmed by Hunter Johnson coming forward by himself to say that he made that 911 call or that he was on that 911 call and that was his 911 call? Because I haven't seen that. People can say, oh, News Nation said that it was the best friend of Ethan and yada, yada, yada. Well, News Nation said a lot of fucking things. And they've been wrong a lot of fucking times. So yeah, no. The timeline's completely off about Karen and the whole Maddie line and all that. That's just completely off. And if I believe Dave and I believe Kim and they're getting the calls and they're getting these, these messages and that Dave didn't go to work at 9:30 because of this. What's a question that no one's asked ever Steve Gonsalves? And you know what the answer is that people, when I ask them this, which is, when did Steve and Christy go down to Moscow then? Who ID'd anybody's body? When did you go there? Did you get a phone call and then you rushed on down to Moscow? Like, Maddie is like a kid to you too. So if you would have thought that Maddie could have possibly been, an unconscious person, then, you'd go there, because of her, right? And then I found out about the Seahawks game with Tom Brady and what time that really was. And how come nobody, you're going to tell me that these athletes, these frat guys that think that they're still athletes and they're playing intramural sports in college, woo, and they're diehard, Seahawks fans. You don't think they got up early that morning, or maybe never even went to bed, and that they're pumped to watch the Seahawks play Tom Brady and in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, that's a huge game. They've only played each other 4 times in Brady's career. Has Seattle played Brady? And by the way, they're 2-2. Hell yeah, they're all people would be watching this game. People would be getting up early, tailgating themselves, with friends or whatever, or bars would be opening earlier to show that. But nobody out there, until I mentioned it the other night, talking about the game and how big that would be for that area because of the Seahawks, you're Seahawks fans. So you get a call from your niece. You would have tracked that down. Then you said that your 16 or 17-year-old daughter comes down and she's saying something, and then the answer though was well, who called? Well, I don't know. I have no idea. What do you mean you have no idea who called? How could that be even an answer? I have no idea who called. There was somebody saying that Kaylee's dad. What? That doesn't even make any sense to me, because people are usually afraid to do stuff like that. It's one of those things what Steve was saying. Well, I didn't have the heart to tell Karen that we had just had a sheriff over and that they just told us that, Maddie was one of the, she was going to be there in 20 minutes. Well, maybe did you have the heart to then get in the vehicle and then drive there so that she wouldn't be by herself down there? I don't know how anybody would just be sitting around if you weren't hearing from anybody for hours after getting a call like that. And then if you're calling and the police are not giving, they're not telling you anything, okay, then, or maybe Steve's the rest of how people were, and they didn't realize that the cops didn't know. But then once you would have ever gotten wind of the time of the 911 call, and that it was at 11:56 a.m., the first thing that would go off in my head, I'd be wait a second, 11:56. What the fuck? My niece called me at what time? Hey, what time did she call us? Well, it says here at 10 a.m. They called us 2 hours before. How the fuck did she know before even 911 was called? What's going on? So so the timeline that I will be rolling out here it's very, very in depth. Very in depth. And I'm going with hopefully the information of I put it in to see if, hey, a lot of things may have been going on with that interview. I know that you could have said this. Did you really mean this? Did you really mean, can you maybe check your phone records to see what time your niece called? I'm just curious. Did your niece call at 1 or 1:30? And who are these sheriff people that showed up? Okay. And are you sure it was at 1 or 1:30? Are you sure it wasn't earlier? Can you check the phone records to see what time that would have been? the first time that you would have got a call from her, you know, because the whole point of that interview was to talk about this protocol and how long all of this took. How, you know, what else would you take away from that interview? But that doesn't make sense with the timeline that you gave during the interview. During the interview, you would look at it and be like, how the hell did Moscow get all the way out to CDA that quickly and 2 people from the investigation? And then did they do that for the other people? Did they drive and go see these other people's parents? And then you mix all that with what Steve knows. How does Steve know? How did he know this stuff that he knew? What did Steve want to be asked? Did Steve want to be asked, what'd you see when you went down to campus that morning when your niece called you? Did you go to campus that morning? What'd you see? Hey, we know we've listened to that 911 call, Steve. There's voices on that 911 call, and we think that one of them sounds like you. Again, listen to this. You guys don't understand that every single person that did that interview with Chronicles of Libya, like that whole talk about that whole day when they do that part, none of that is factual in that it's impossible. Social media didn't have all this bullshit out there. That wasn't there. There was no article about the roommates ever getting interviewed. So then that means like none of this stuff happened. What are you guys talking about? Why are you saying this? What's going on? Are you just need a way to say it and you can't give up? Like you're so let's just say, that an article was released and that's how I knew that the 2 were getting interviewed. What? But what's wrong with the truth? What's wrong with even who gives a crap? Everyone's all sitting around. They told us that the 2 roommates went off and that they were, being asked what happened.
To help the investigation, but believe investigators could be missing the mark.
Imagine if you're a parent and you have pertinent information to this, like that dog, and you're asking me to just shut up. It's not going to happen. I'm going to find a microphone and I'm going to talk to it and I'm going to tell.
Okay, so this can only work one of 2 ways. Either Steve believes that somebody has pertinent information, and I'm going to use a microphone and I'm going to make that known, and I'm going to get my answers. Because law enforcement isn't asking those people that, which would be clearly apparent, whether he's talking about himself or whether he is talking about a different parent. Okay. He is talking about a parent that has pertinent information like that dog has. Okay. But you're not asking the questions. You're not answering the questions.
People, this is important.
The other thing is that when Chronicles Olivia did that with them, almost 6-7 weeks had gone by. 2 days before Kohlberger was arrested was this interview. And like their timeline, like Olivia is a timeline person, Kaylee's sister. She was all over that timeline. Okay. No, they didn't come back. Like she was adamant about the whole 145. No, my sisters got home at 1:56, not 1:45. And anybody that knows anything knows that the first 24, 48 hours is everything. So don't you think that someone like Olivia would be telling her dad to get his ass the fuck down to Moscow? Because she knows all this. You need to get down there now. And then someone's like, well, what if Christy was like, no, you can't leave me alone? Well, we have Steven here. Steven will stay with you. Let me go down there. Okay. And Olivia would be pushing for that too. Dad, just go down there. I don't know what the heck they're doing. Like, or here, I'll call the police. Like I would start saying, I'm going to call the police. I'll call. Like, and you're also going to be talking to all the friends. And then you're going to be like, okay, well, text her and see what she says. She's not answering our phone call. So maybe if you text her, they'll answer you. Talking about the roommates, the people that you do talk to, you know what I mean? Hey, what's up? Like, hey, what's going on down there? What the heck? But what do you mean what's going on here? Get down here. You need to get down here right now. So you're telling me that people were telling Maddie's mom to come down there, but nobody was telling Mr. or Mrs. Gonsalves to come down there? People were bawling. People were like, no, you don't understand. Like, it. But if you got a phone call and you tracked it all the way back to that it was the neighbor, right? And so Christy or Steve's talking to the neighbor to say, okay, hey, like my niece told me that you got this call or whatever, you got a text or whatever it was, and you're a neighbor. Can you see the house? Because we've been trying to call and nobody's answering. I was just wondering, can you just go over there? And they would either have to say, well, no, I can't because it's all roped off. Like the cops are out there. It's all roped off. Or they could say, well, yeah, I can go over there. But you'd also ask them a bunch of questions of like, okay, well, what did they exactly say? I can go knock on the door. You know what I mean? But if there wasn't any cops out there and nobody was answering when anybody would go over to knock on the door, or if they left for a little bit and then they came back, we don't know. But I believe Dave's timeline and I believe Kim's, and that's putting you at 9:30 of knowing about all of this. That's 2.5, 3 hours before the 911 call happened. This isn't somebody that could, wake up and say that they stumbled across, because I slept in and then I was just texting and got out of bed for a little bit. And then when I did, or then I told my friends to come over because we're all going to go to brunch. Like, none of that now is possible once you put out the word in text messages or in whatever type of an exchange 2 or 3 hours before the 911 call, if you're writing that something happened and that there's all of that goes out the window. Who's on that 911 call? Check this out. Yeah, Dave had to be to work at 9:30. He had to get all dressed and ready for work. He can't just it's not like a job like that. And so, we were being kind by saying that he knew by at least 9. He believes it was before that, but I'm just saying, well, let's just go with, safe bet here. We'll go 9, because he had to drive and do all that.
The other 2 roommates were there at the time of the attack?
All the information that we have from our investigation is that, yes, they were.
Okay, but they were unhurt.
That is correct.
So is there any explanation as to why it took so long then for someone to call 911? You have surviving witnesses to an incident at 3 or 4 in the morning, and the 911 call didn't come until noon?
I don't think I ever said that they were witnesses. I said they were there. We don't know why that call came in at noon and not in the middle of the night. Would have we loved for that to have happened? Yes, but that's not how it took place. So that's why we're investigating everything still to try to pull all the pieces together.
Were they one of the people, were they the 911 caller?
At this point in time, I'm not going to divulge who our 911 caller is, just because I want to keep the integrity of the investigation at this point, okay?
Okay, and
the integrity of the investigation. You guys, what would blow up what would blow it all up? Well, somebody that would have to drive an hour and 30 minutes to get somewhere. Being the 911 caller, being on the tape. What would blow it all up? Well, we believe that it was, one of the roommates. That's where the call came from, one of their phones. So, we're not going to divulge who the 911 caller is. Well, then just divulge the fact that say that they weren't, or because that's not what was asked. Were they the 911 caller? Were they the 911 caller? Meaning the roommates. Well, no. Then it would come out in the second presser that it was the 911 call originated in the home from one of the surviving roommates' cell phones. And then let's think about it. If you're rushing down as a parent or rushing over to somebody's place, and you, even if you're not a parent, let's say you're a friend or whatever, and you get out of your vehicle really quick and you run inside, and you see what was going on, you stumble upon that, okay, and you don't have your phone on you because you just left it in the car because you just ran out of the car to hurry up. So your phone was just right there in the car, and you just didn't grab it because you're trying to get in, the house. Because what never made sense to me is if it was Hunter Johnson, why did kids have their phones on them all the time? Why didn't he just use his phone to call 911? You're telling me that 20 and 21-year-olds knew to say, okay, no, don't use yours because it needs to come from mine. Did the person that passed out and fell down or whatever, did they hit their head? Were they what type of caregiving did you give to that person? Were they really passed out? Was it a fake pass out? And everything that you know now with just because they said it at the press conference, guys, you guys know they're allowed to lie. None of this can be held against them in court. I mean, they're going to have to answer to it, but it's not. You're not like in trouble because, I never said that one of them was I never said that they weren't a witness. Just like they said that they were downstairs sleeping on the first floor. But all of this would come out later to find out, no, she was on the second floor. No, she then was a witness. And so then I said to myself, well, let's go back to this whole 911 call. Because if they lied about all of that to us, then why should I believe that the call originated from one of the roommates' cell phones, one of the surviving roommates' cell phones? Why should I even believe that? You said that Dylan was sleeping downstairs, that they weren't a witness. You said that you believe that they were there. You said that there's others there during the attack, and that you believe that they were there, in the morning. Wait, what? So I'm throwing it all out the window. Why would I believe any of that? Why would I believe that Hunter Johnson, zip tie, is the 911 caller? Hunter Johnson, in my humble opinion, he didn't want to tell law enforcement anything when it came to a noise complaint. How would Hunter Johnson, how would divulging, if somebody from that campus that lived there, that was a student that either lived in that house or that constantly visited, or even that was summoned over, how would them being the one that would call 911 or on that 911 call, how does that jeopardize the integrity of the case? I just don't think it would. The other thing is that when you are like, let's say that you're at the dentist office and you get done with your appointment and you walk outside, and then you get bombarded by like the press. So then you would speak to them like you weren't even expecting it, and you were just like, you had none of your stuff out in front of you. Like people are asking you questions, or, it was just so like, oh my God, what the hell? All right. That's not what the interview with Olivia, Chronicles of Olivia, was. That was a setup, like, we want to get out our story. You had the Chapins that wanted to talk for Ethan and say, these kids were good kids. There's flat out rumors out there that are not true. There was no love triangle and there was no drugs. That was the, what, and I was like, what rumor is she talking about? I didn't even hear that. I didn't hear no love triangle. And I didn't hear anybody get shot up on the block. Like, what's going on? These rumors. So it would be stuff that you need to talk about because, you want to get your story out because the questions aren't being asked, or, hey, this really needs to get out there because this isn't, this is wrong, or this is this, or this is that, or that this whole big protocol thing that we weren't notified. Like, why are we talking about that 2 months later? But then come to find out when you do put the story out, none of that's accurate. So why are you putting out a story that's not even accurate? To the point that it wasn't like the, TMZ hit you up on the side. And this was you guys have all these phone records. Okay. You have all these text messages. You have all this digital stuff that like you can pinpoint everything down. Like, who are the sheriffs that came there? When did you guys call the police? When did you guys call the hospital? Let's put this all on a timeline with like some receipts behind it. When did your niece call? How far and way ahead of it? Because it's not like they did anything wrong. If Steve and his wife got a phone call from their niece and then they drove down there and they were the ones that, walked in there because they just, they walked in there. I don't know. Were they the ones that woke up the roommates? Oh, wait, no, that can't be. Were the roommates even there when whoever got there? Like, did they leave for a little bit? Did he have to go do something? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how other people are finding out about something 3 hours. I mean, that means that the roommates had to at least know about that to get that word out. But someone tells me that my kid's dead and they're only an hour and 20 minutes away. Also, I'm going. Or FaceTime. Like, I want to be on the phone with somebody with FaceTime, and I want you to be over there, and I want you to turn the camera around, and I'm, go in there. Like, go knock on that door. People can say, well, why wouldn't you just call the police and have them do a wellness check? You guys, you can do a wellness check all you want, but they're not going to go in there if nobody answers the door. So if there was a knock at the door and they didn't answer, the police just aren't going to barge in there. They're going to be like, oh, the place is finally quiet. All those noise complaints, it looks like they're sleeping. All the cars are here. Well, see, but that's the thing is no one's answering. You've been calling. Well, I can't breach. Like, I mean, do you know? I mean, it's all secure. There's no sign of forced entry. There's, they got all these cars here. I don't see anything. You know what I mean? I'm looking in the windows. I don't see anything. But if somebody did a wellness check like that, that would be in the log. That would be in the log if there was a wellness check done. But it's so hard to think about that at that time if you're not somebody that would think like, oh my God, yeah, we could have done a wellness check, But you guys, it just goes back to 101, which is this. I did a case a couple years ago when what people were saying did not match the phone records. Okay. If you're missing, I'm calling you, right? I'm calling your phone. I can't just assume that you don't have your phone, so I don't call you. How do I know that you don't have your phone? So I'm going to call your phone. I'm going to call Maddie. You're going to call people. You're going to do all those things but if somebody told me that, oh my God, Katie left her cell phone with me last night when we were out. I have it. You know what I mean? Then I wouldn't call. I wouldn't call that person's phone if I know that they didn't have it, but I have to know that. Just like if I was with somebody, I'm not calling that person because I'm with them. So everybody's phone records are going to show all the shit that went down that day. And see, I'd be pulling out my phone records. And they did it before. They did it when they went on Fox and they said, no, we made sure we went ahead and we pulled the phone records. We went and checked. The last time we heard from them was at 3:00 a week ago. 3:00 a week ago. And he's talking about the police. And it was that time period of basically on 11/29 is when, after the first 2 weeks, is when stuff went, we're not going to be, talking to the parents or anything anymore. Ironically, the same day that they found Brian Culver's vehicle. So
Last question.
if they reveal the 911 caller and it's somebody that's going to talk, okay, and they said the 911 caller was, let's just hypothetically say it was Steve, okay, and then what's the media going to do if they were to find that out? Oh my God, we're going to ask him all these questions. And Steve could just tell them, you know, oh my God, were you the night, you know, if the police revealed who the 911 caller was, okay, then what would happen? Steve's out and about. You can then here, go talk to him. You know what I mean? Go ask him. Oh my God, you were the 911 caller, so you were in the house. Oh my God, wait, were you down there? Like, how did you? Why were you there? Don't you live an hour and 30 minutes away? Like, and then you'd have to. Yeah, my niece called me and she told me that this has happened. And all we did was we came down because she goes to a different school, so she was over in there in Spokane. So yeah, we came down, and I was expecting to, you know, I called. They said that no, there wasn't anything like that, because I had called way before the 911 call had come in because I was the 911 call. So when I called, they had no idea what I was talking about because it hadn't been called in yet. So there was no person that got shot up yet in their eyes or that was dead and stuff like that. So wait, you went down there because your niece called you? Yeah. And then we started trying to call, the roommates, and nobody was answering phones. My daughter's phone was going straight to voicemail. Maddie's wasn't. Jack's wasn't. Nobody was answering. Nobody was answering. So yeah, I went down there. Their points of damage don't match. Why wouldn't you ask a parent if a parent had pertinent information? Why wouldn't you ask a parent? You got to ask the questions.
And you're asking me to just shut up. It's not gonna happen.
The Gonzalez family says they want to do anything they can to help the investigation, but believe investigators could be missing the mark.
Imagine if you're a parent and you have pertinent information to this, like that dog, and you're asking me to just shut up. It's not gonna happen. I'm gonna find a microphone and I'm gonna talk to it and I'm gonna tell people this is important. Whether it helps solve the case or not, how can you eat that? How could you suppress that?
How could you suppress that? How can you suppress that? So let me get this straight. Listen, in order to maintain and keep this investigation, okay, Steve, you can't tell anybody that you were the 911 caller, okay? Because then it's going to go into like the whole thing. Well, how were you the 911 caller? Did you tamper with the scene? You know, the stuff that you would know. It would also allude to the fact that all that time went by of them not making the 911 call and actually knowing that they were dead. Okay. And we don't have reason to believe that they were involved, and it's going to really mess with our investigation. Okay, we were able to rule them out within the first hour. Okay, they were all drinking. They don't know anything. They all got fucking hammered. You know what I mean? Like, but you can't, if you say anything, it's going to hurt this case. What would the dog have? Well, if the dog could talk, the dog could tell us everything, right? Or what does Steve have, even if he was the 911 caller? What would Steve know? What did he do? Did he go through all the footage of the neighbor stuff? How did they get the neighbor's footage? You would physically have to be there. You guys want to know why? Because all those girls got the hell out of Dodge. So if you went there the day after, if you went there in 2 days, in order to, you'd have to like know who these people were. Okay, to text them, hey, I need your guys' ring stuff. Can you send me all the stuff so that we can look at it? Because that's what Olivia said, that she went through the ring footage and was able to find, she saw that they got home, that it was 156, not 145, like they're saying. 156. Well, so Olivia knows how important it is for a timeline. And so my question is that the only thing that makes sense to me is that you're telling the story that you did to Olivia to hit home on certain points. But I think that timelines are just as important. So no, I'm not going to let anybody just, I don't think that in any way, shape, or form the Gonzalez family is involved with anything. Okay? I'm saying that they've had to keep quiet about whatever it is that they know for a very long time. And I think that News Nation is wrong. I do not think that this would be such a big deal with this 911 call if Hunter Johnson was the one that placed the call from one of the surviving roommates' cell phones inside the house. I don't think that saying no, neither one of the roommates was the one that made the phone call, and leave it at that, and we're not divulging who it was. But we didn't ask you to divulge it. We just simply asked, was it one of the roommates? And you could have just easily answered that yes or no. And then there's the oddball thing, which is we don't even know who the 911 caller was. We know that it was from this cell phone because nobody talked on it, and it was just a call. So then again, we ask ourselves, did somebody place a call there so that they would have to go there? Because nobody called 911. But you'd have to physically be at that location for them to like geo-track it to go to that location. It's not like Steve could do a 911 hang up from his home location. No, he would have to like be outside by that house. So, but at the end of the day, everything that was put out in what the Chronicles of Olivia, that timeline is just completely not accurate. And then Steve kind of slipped when the whole point of it was this protocol needs to change. Well, how are you bitching about only 3 hours, but yet you're saying 6 or 10, and that puts you in the 9 and 10 o'clock, possibly even earlier if you're going 10 hours. Shit, you're talking about kickoff of the game, of the football game. Which, if you think about it, if these kids were getting up to watch that game and to do things because of that game, then that's when you would find the bodies. If these kids were like, let's all watch the Seahawks game. I mean, I don't know how these kids are, but why do all that in interview? That's what I said. Like you wanted to have that. You wanted to have that for a reason. But then 2 days later, Brian Culver would be arrested. Maybe there was more stuff in it, and that stuff got taken out because of the arrest. So maybe there was more stuff that was in it, but that it got taken out. And I would love to know what that more stuff would be. Because just because Brian Culver got arrested doesn't not mean that everything that Mr. Gonsalves has about this whole thing, like, do I think that it could have been the perfect storm when you're telling me that Brian Culver is a creeper and that he just happened to pick the house that was tied up into all this other shit? And that he picked the right house because there'd be a lot of people out there that could have done this because of what they were involved in. And that it was a revolving door, so anybody could just be coming and going. But then how does he even find it in the first place? How does he even get to like get on that type of a level to know that stuff? How would you know when everybody went to bed and was in separate rooms at that point? A lot of intel. But yeah, could it be the perfect storm? And then you just so happen to leave a sheath behind and it had some DNA on it and no sign of forced entry. So you just had just a walk in the park in there too. I mean, everything just went your way. You go in there. People clearly heard you and saw you and nobody called 911 and but yet you're doing all the stakeout and you would know that these people have cameras and you're going to put your vehicle on camera. That's a pretty big perfect storm right there. I mean, so you're basically saying that if he would have killed everybody as well, then there'd be no one to say that he had the bushy brows and I wonder what time the 911 call would have came in if think about that. If everybody would have been dead, what time was the 911 call? I mean, nobody could make it, right? If everybody was dead. Yeah, Steve could have called for a wellness check from his home. But what people don't get is just because you call a wellness check doesn't mean they don't go in and break down your door. Like, that's just not what happens. You have to have you're going to have a really good reason for the police to go into that home. They need probable cause. It's not just going to break. They just they'd have to be like looking through windows and be able to see something, and then someone's in. You'd have to like kind of like maybe even cough up a lie to say this person needs their medicine. You don't understand. They take medicine. You have to get in there like they'll be unconscious. Like, come on. like you're going to have to like push it on something like that. But if you go for a wellness check and you go and you knock on someone's door and they don't answer, the cops just say, yeah, no, I mean, there's nobody there. We knocked on the door. Nobody's answering. I didn't see their vehicle, or I went, they don't break down the door. So there just have to be like a lot more to it. They would just have to call the landlord. Yeah, and the landlord would have to go there and let them in. Absolutely. Mm. Oh. Yes, that's what the police are saying, that the door was open when they arrived. But like I said, guys, like these pressers now, I mean, they told us that Dylan was on the first floor. They told us that nobody saw anything. I thought that it was male DNA, not male BK DNA. It was male DNA. I am a caregiver for a 90-year-old man and his family anyway. They just knock and walk right in. I'm thinking, God, did I leave anything laying out my room? Also, let's say that when the niece would have called, if the niece called and then started talking about stuff that's like, oh no, they were talking about like drugs, and I like when you start saying that you have no idea what's going on, and that like drugs and like stuff that like is wild and against the law, and I'm sorry, but people's parents out there aren't trying to like call the police to get their kids in trouble until they would assess the situation just like a tad. Like I don't think that I would get a call and get off the phone with my niece and first of all not know where that came from. I would track that back because you clearly got the call because of something, or you got a text. Like, who is this person? Like, get to the bottom of where they heard this from, how they heard this. I'm calling Maddie. I'm calling Kaylee. I'm calling Jack. No one's answering, right? Okay, so then I call my niece back. I'm like, hey, did you get that information? Okay, well, just give me the person then. Like, I'll call them. And then you would know that they had other roommates. So who else was Kaylee? Do we have Xana's number? Let's call Xana. Like, we know Xana. Olivia, like, they know Xana. Like, let's get her number. Let's call her. We know her sister. You know what I mean? Like, that you would start going through that to call the other roommates. I would not have ever hung up in my situation. For me, I would have never hung up that phone with my niece and called the police. That's not how that would have worked for me, especially depending on truly what the niece said. And then once you end up calling the police and you're going to say, hey, my name is Steve Gonsalves, and my niece called me and said that there was a shooting last night and that my daughter Kaylee was shot. And if you say this at 9 or 10 o'clock, when I believe that this all happened, then they're going to say, no, we do not have any, nobody called in a shooting. There's nothing like that. Here's the address. Like nobody was dispatched there for a shooting. No, there's been not a shooting, period. Then what do you do? Then I would call back my niece and be like, listen, I just called the police and they told me that there wasn't a shooting. Nobody's called in a shooting. And what the hell's going on? She would have to say something like, I don't know what they're doing. They're over there. No one's called the police yet. You need to get down there. They're not calling the police. I'm telling you, these people said that there's blood all over the place in there. And they'd be like, what? What do you mean they're not calling the police? Well, then who, do you hear this stuff? So then what would happen? And what type of protocols are we talking about needing to change? Is there a different protocol that he's really talking about? Let's see. No need to go upstairs. Okay. Then I'm going to talk to you guys about this exit. You guys, if Maddie or Kaylee was the target, okay, and somebody was planning this, right? Please explain to me who would go in that home, go upstairs, and ever need to come downstairs again. Okay? Meaning they would just go out the balcony. That is the easiest jump down. The easiest jump down. You would go out the balcony. Why would you ever come back downstairs? Tell me why you would ever go downstairs. You know that there's a dude down there. Okay, you were able to get in because what? It was unlocked. So you would what? You're able to get in the slider because it was unlocked. And you're going to go upstairs, okay? Because that's your target, allegedly. Why wouldn't you just go out the balcony? That's the easiest. You're not going to be seen. It's all black and dark out there, back there. Why would you ever go back downstairs to have a possible encounter with somebody? Remember there was a thud that they say they heard? A thud. They heard a dog barking and then a thud. And that the thud they thought that they heard came from, Xana's room. Well, why can't the thud come from jumping out the balcony? Well, because if you jump out the balcony, you can't say that Dylan saw you, right? So if you jump off the balcony, you can't say that Dylan wouldn't have been able to see you, right? You guys ever seen? Yeah, I don't know how much snow you like. I mean, this is what this is. There's not that much snow. You guys saw what it looked like the next morning, right? Like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. That there would be like all this, like this. You guys saw that day's pictures, right? On 5, what was it? On where is it? I mean, I don't know how snowy you guys think it was. It wasn't that snowy at all. It was just lightly dusted. When they showed the cars and on King at 5 o'clock that day, there wasn't much snow at all. Okay. So why would you go in? Your target's upstairs because it's Kaylee or Maddie. Like, they're trying to make it seem, well, at least law enforcement, that are out there talking about it. Why wouldn't you go upstairs, do that, and then leave out the balcony? Out the back balcony. I mean, wouldn't that be wouldn't that be what you would do if you were planning on doing this? And people can say, well, I'm not, well, you're trying to think like the killer. Well, if you're sitting there saying that he's been stalking them and he was plotting this and doing all this stuff, then yeah, and he's a criminal, like he's a yes, I think that he would have looked at all aspects, right? And he knows that Ethan stays there because of Xana, right? And that he, they have the other roommates that are down there. But again, it was just a perfect storm. And just, are you kidding me? While I'm doing this, there's a DoorDash coming. And then therefore, like, I run into the DoorDash. Well, I run into like one of them who got the DoorDash, and that's why I had this encounter with them and had to kill them because it was an accident. Like, I wasn't planning on killing them. But there was Kaylee and Maddie are supposedly sleeping. You lose the sheath upstairs without a struggle, but then we're like, people are fighting for their lives downstairs. Oh, I already lost the sheath up there. So your target is whoever was killed first, and the blood, like their blood would be transferred onto like everybody else. And maybe you're not going to be able to determine if it was Maddie or Kaylee because they're like in the same bed and it's immersed or something. But I would still think that the wounds, the penetrating wounds, would have the blood of that other person in that. I mean, unless I guess you're going back and forth, but that would just be insane. But this is an insane job. But if your target was upstairs, why wouldn't you just leave the balcony, guys? Come on. But it makes sense if you heard the dog barking, if that's what they want to say. Well, when you opened up the slider, was the slider unlocked? Was it locked? When you would go out that's where I would think the dog would be barking because you're passing the dog. Also, you're not on any cameras then. There's no cameras back there. So I mean, were the roommates the ones that were cleared within an hour? You heard that in one of the other interviews that Christy and Steve did, and it was like this. Well, why wouldn't you share someone's alibi? Why wouldn't you share someone's alibi? What would prevent you from sharing someone's alibi? How would somebody have an alibi if it was one of the roommates? What would be the alibi? The other roommate? Is the other roommate the alibi? And I think what Steve and Christy are wondering there is it's like this. If they're all in that house, how are you excluding them? Like, what would be their alibi? And normally, isn't it an alibi that you would be somewhere else at somebody? Like, your alibi is she has a strong alibi. She has a strong alibi. But what would be Bethany or Dylan's alibi if you truly think about it? You just told us all that everybody was sleeping when this happened. So wouldn't their alibis be that they were sleeping? So how within an hour would you be excluding the roommates from being involved? Dylan and Bethany, do they have vehicles? Where were their vehicles? And what about the blood? Where did it all go? No one saw it in the grass, the dirt. Scott Roeder actually had a pretty good. It's just about that it would be, Okay, for example, I showed you guys that picture. All right. All that blood was just like pooled underneath, and you'd have to be, if there's like a struggle, more of like a struggle than blood. What you would be hoping for, I guess, would be like if your feet would be, in this blood. But if you stab people in beds, the blood isn't pooling on the ground. The blood's pooling like, in the beds. So, Maddie and Kaylee in the same bed, but then there's Ethan and Xana, like where were they? And then what did you do with your knife? You're going to put a knife just in your pocket? Come on. I just believe that if Maddie or Xana, Maddie or Kaylee was the target and their room is upstairs and that's who you're targeting and you weren't, like that's the only person that you're planning on killing was one of them, but then lo and behold, they're both in the same room. I don't understand how that person wouldn't just go out the balcony. Especially if there was more noise than you were anticipating and that people could have heard you from downstairs. Okay. Because technically it's not just the two people that would be on the, or the three people that would be on the second floor. You also have Bethany on the first floor. Okay. Any one of these people could have just called 911, right? If there was more of a commotion upstairs than you were planning because, oh my God, they're both in the same room. And that wasn't you didn't think that they were going to be, and did he go in there to attack Maddie? And then Kaylee heard it. Okay. So she heard something, and then that's why she came up out of her room and went over there. And then that's why the wounds are different, because it was like an attack from like she was standing up to then what she was thrown on the bed, again, a targeted attack. But why would you go downstairs? Why wouldn't you just leave out? You park behind in that area back behind the house. Why wouldn't you leave out the balcony? Oh, Brian Culver or this killer's afraid of heights. They couldn't just, you guys, when you go all the way to the left-hand side, it is such an easy jump down. Like, it's like you're jumping off a swing when you're little. So why would you go downstairs? So Steve's over here asking, they didn't have to go upstairs. They didn't have to go upstairs. Why they go upstairs? Come on, guys. You didn't have to go upstairs. Well, I'm asking, if the target's upstairs, then they didn't have to go down. They didn't have to go back downstairs. And I'm not sold that they did. Because everyone was downstairs. How would anybody know that was outside of that house and wasn't inside? How would anybody know when everybody would have been in separate rooms so that, okay, I can actually take people on? Why was it so adamant that let's change this up about this 145 to 156? So, okay, that's fine. You want to say that Ethan and Xana were home at 145, but my sisters weren't home until 156. Okay, but then earlier in the investigation, it was that the two other roommates were home at 1, and then Ethan and Xana were home at 145. So technically speaking, Ethan and Xana could have been dead. And then Kaylee and Maddie get home. Why was it? It was just interesting that she wanted that change so bad. If you just see them walking into the house, at 156, and they're saying 145. They're alive, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're alive. And they went into their home. So it would be about who's coming over to that house or who was already in that house. Like, what did my sisters walk into? Who was in that home? And then there's no talks about, okay, well, if you have that footage, when did Xana and Ethan get home? Do you have them, walking over? That old audio call, no, I have no comment on that. I have, like, you can't hear shit from that. I don't think any of that stuff says what it says. I can't hear any of that stuff. No. Sorry. I just know that there's stuff out there that phone records prove stuff. Like, without a doubt, like, we would know when Christy got that call from her niece. It doesn't need to be, hey, what was it, like 1 or 1:30? Well, I'd have been like, here, scan across my, my type up my timeline, scan across that while you're doing like this, documentary or interview or whatever, and scan across this and show a sample of my bill, or like that we're looking at it at a table, and I'm going to show you, yeah, look at right here. This is the phone call that we got. That's my niece calling, and just blur out, leave the first 3 numbers and show that time. Look at all these were all Kaylee's calls. To Jack, when did Jack call Christy back that morning? And then I know that everybody is saying it, and so does Steve say, like, that he was told, that they had called, like the surviving roommates had called the other, the ones that were deceased. Okay. Well, how, what does somebody calling somebody's phone mean, though? Did Bethany call Dylan's phone, and did Dylan call Bethany's phone? Meaning this, if Dylan was in her room and she wanted to see, like, she called or texted to see if these, like, if anybody would answer after it all happened, because, like, a house would go from having noises to them being dead silent. So if you texted Xana, if you called Xana, if you texted Ethan, if you called them, and you did Kaylee and you did Maddie, did you message Bethany? Did you call Bethany? And just because you called them, you could have done that to say, can you keep it down? Like, that's what I would do. Instead of getting out of bed, I would call them and be like, what the hell are you guys doing out there? It's whatever time in the morning, like, go to bed. What the fuck? So just because those calls were made, that doesn't mean that that's because it's going to be a version of, like, oh, I called, after I heard all the commotion. What, to tell them to be quiet? Well, yeah. So you called while there was noise. Yeah. Or, like, she's going to have to say, no, I didn't hear. It went all the way silent. So then I started calling. Wait, but that's what you wanted. You wanted it to be quiet. So why would you call if people are being quiet? Like, you're going to be able to trip this up so easily, so many different ways. Because none of it makes any fucking sense. Mm-mm-mm. The DNA under fingernails, I don't think that you'd have to be like they'd have to have like you'd have to be able to grab the person that that had the knife, to be able to get a hold of them. They have all their clothes on, and then as far as like scratching to get like some type of their skin. Yeah. I mean, isn't it a no-brainer that you look at the victims' phones first? Yeah, I mean, look at this, yes.
Anything they can to help the investigation, but believe investigators could be missing the mark.
Imagine if you're a parent and you have
Right there. Okay. See that balcony right there? You can just see how high it is. See off the side there. Like you guys, it is the easiest jump. Like the easiest jump to do that from that left side there. You wouldn't be jumping from the right side, like where like the cops and by the slider. You're going all the way to the left-hand side. You're jumping down, and you're going to be right in the back of the woods there. So just walk right through to get in your vehicle, or to just walk away from the scene as like on foot. Why would you keep on going up and down stairs? And the stairs are like noisy, and you're going to go all these times past Dylan's room, but never go in there. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, this is the perfect storm. And then here, Brian managed to like, or whoever did this, managed to, what are the odds that they just decide that we're not going to call 911? We're not going to call 911. And then we're not going to call 911. We do find the bodies. We're going to wait another 3 hours. I mean, and then what's with this whole like burglary thing, Did Brian just lay out a bunch of drugs everywhere? So when they woke up, it was like, oh my God, all these drugs are all over. Like, oh my God.
pertinent information to this, like that dog. And you're asking me to just shut up. It's not going to happen. I'm going to find a microphone and I'm going to talk to it. And
It's pertinent information, just like that dog. Shit, that dog, if it could talk, what do you think the dog? If the dog was in the room, it was left in that room. What is the dog? What is the dog? What information does the dog have?
I tell people this is important, whether it helps solve the case or not.
Whether it helps solve the case or not. How can you sit there and say that you have pertinent information, but in the same breath you're saying whether it helps solve the case or not? Well, doesn't usually pertinent information help solve cases? I don't understand this like, you say, he says a sentence, and then he says like whether it helps to solve it or not. Well, usually pertinent information helps it. But then he says that, but what I have to tell you guys, it's important because it's about like something else that's going on. Something else. And then why do you need to be asked the questions? Why can't you just say it?
How can you eat that? How could you suppress that? Something you know could help your child and help everyone in that house find justice. But you can't force them to ask you the question.
Christy Gonzalez speaks about what she believes happened in the...
But you can't force them to ask you the question. Well, that's going to be a wrap, folks. Taking all my members 3 hours. I was only going to do this for an hour, but we went deeper. You guys, this timeline's everything. This timeline's everything because it has to do with the 911 call. Okay? You know, why didn't they call 911 at 9 or 10? What made them call 911 at 11:56? You know, that time. Like, 911 could have been called at, 11:45, 11:30, 11:15, 11, 10:45, 10:30, 10:15, 10, 9:45, 9:30, 9. And just what I think is so ironic is that 911 was called 11:56, which is almost dead nuts on of like if you were to leave being away, an hour and 20-minute drive, hour and 30 minutes, if you were to get a call at 10, 10 or 10:30, how long would it take you to get there? And then think about that. Was there anybody called that night? Meaning like at like 4:30? Oh, thank you. Good night, all the bed bugs bite. You marathoner, you. Good for you. Thank you. I was here for every second of it and will continue to be. April 418. You seem like you're new to the bunch here, April. Welcome for the nooner. Taking you on the member deep dive. You guys, Steve's putting it right out here. This gag order. Who is this gag order for? What does Steve know? Why do we have to include him in the gag order? You'd have to sit down here and be like, you guys aren't going to fucking believe this. This is, we have one of the parents that called the 911 call in. What? How did one of the parents, what's going on? I don't know. Somebody called them. Or it could be something like that he's on the 911 call. That he's, I just think that there's a chance that he's the caller. I think that there's a very decent chance. Or that he was, or when he started getting, calls that morning that stuff was off, that he was able to, do some stuff or talk to some people and have them play by playing and recording and taking, pictures and videos and doing stuff like that. But I don't know what type of pertinent information one of these parents would have to also include himself, but they're not asking. What do you want them to ask the Chapins? Hey, your kid was there. They have all, like, what do you have to ask them these questions? Like, they know the answers. Ask, if you're a parent and you had pertinent information. I think he's talking about himself. I think he's the one with the pertinent information, and they told him that he needed to be quiet, okay? Because it's going to hurt the investigation. You cannot be saying, and the reason he knows things is stuff was not leaked to him. And he told you, he's like, nobody leaked anything to me. I earned that. I paid for that. I earned that. And then he covers it up, in my opinion, by saying something about paying for the bill, paying for the funeral. Well, there wasn't a funeral yet. And I thought that Kaylee was cremated. So when did you see her body? If she was cremated, even if with the funeral director? But there was no body. She was cremated. Did you see her before she was cremated? And did you ask Maddie's parents, can I see your daughter so that I can compare the wounds? Wait, what? I mean, you guys understand this, right? You don't need somebody to ask you the right questions to give information that you believe is pertinent. That's what he says, I'm just going to take a microphone and I'm going to just say it. So then just do it. You're suppressing. You're suppressing stuff. Well, I just don't understand, because at first it was that they didn't notify you. Now the cops are suppressing stuff. I mean, if I was Ann Taylor, I'd want to know what the fuck this man's talking about. And I want to know everything this man thought and where he thought this investigation was going until, boom, he gets hit with the right hook too. Brian Coverter, who the fuck is this? Second autopsy. This Android, you need to get an iPhone. News Nation law enforcement analyst said he should be quiet or be investigated. Huh. Exactly. If you go and you listen, wait till you see this timeline that I'm about to pump out. People are gonna, they'll see that, well, it's all factual. I'm taking it all from it. It's their own shit. But there was a guy that did it on Banfield and said, no professional would ever say give that wording. Points of damage don't match. He was talking about what Kaylee's organs basically like being, whatever. But the big thing that I noticed, and I said, he's like, he's either confused, but I've never heard that spoken like that before. And so if you really think about it, you're right. He didn't hear that from a professional. Okay. They were talking about the coroner that she called and that she was telling like a 16 or a 17-year-old something. Remember that? Chrissy was like, yeah, the coroner called and she's telling my 16 or 17-year-old stuff. What? I don't see the coroner calling. Just like I don't see the sheriff showing up at the house. So I don't know what they're talking about. Because my butt, Jesus, that woman's so scared to say like hi, excuse, oh, can I talk now? Oh my God. Yeah, like she's just so, she's just a nervous wreck. But but yeah, they have like some of their stuff is like, yeah. Um, But how would you know there was no blood in your daughter's room and there was, there's no blood on her bed, and that's when I said, wait, I thought that Katie didn't have a bed there. I thought that she had moved out, or like some of her stuff was already like getting to be moved out, and I'm like, no, how would he know that there's no blood? How does he know this? Law enforcement wouldn't tell him this. How the fuck does he know any of this? He's the one that came out and said they died in the same bed together. And they died in the same bed together. What? Like, that's what you guys think that law enforcement told him that? No fucking way. Okay? Not a chance. The only way you're knowing that is if you saw it, or the person that, if like a kid saw it, told you. Mabud is the funniest name ever. Can you imagine growing up with that name? No way in this world so law enforcement tell them details like that. Exactly. And see, but he was right. They were in the same bed. Okay. So he was right about it. And from all accounts, like, it just makes sense to me that a man like him would have gotten his vehicle and would have drove there, or he would have sent his son there. Okay. And they do something really, really interesting at the beginning of the broadcast for the Chronicles of the Law, and they want to make it very known that they were all gathering together out at their house. They were all there. That's what they do on Sundays. They gather, they get together. Well, not everybody was there though. Olivia was in LA, and Kaylee obviously was in, Moscow. And so who's everybody? Your 16 or 17-year-old, and then your son, and then you two? Or did you guys have friends over? Did you guys have, other relatives? I don't know what type of, big blowouts they throw. Yeah, he reminds me of my dad too. He would have been there in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Like, and then I just think that Olivia would be saying that she, you need to get there, especially once, even if you found out that your daughter was the dead one, you would still go. And then what about Maddie? You would go for her. And then you really need to go to find out what the hell is going on, because if Maddie is the unconscious person, then Maddie will be able to tell me. You know what I mean? Like, one of you guys, nobody from the Gonzalez family went there, but now they're the one that's out and about and saying they have all this information. They have all this information. And in none of these interviews Nobody asked them. When you got the call, did you then drive to Moscow? Like, when did you go there? When did they identify the bodies? Did they even have to identify the bodies? Someone here said that they didn't go until the 16th. When I'm going to call flat out, I don't think that's possible. Olivia was able to get the ring footage that she went through to be able to see, how are you getting that? How are you getting that? You're getting that because you go to the house like I did, and I had to get all my neighbors like ring camera footage. So I had to give them my cell phone number, and I said, here, will you just send me all the clips that you have between these hours? And so, and that's what you do. You just forward the clip, whatever the clips record in all these times, and boom, boom, boom. But then, so I got to thinking, and I'm like, well, wait a second. They would have had to do that like right away, because if law enforcement, when did they get their paws in it to say like, hey, don't give this out, or it's okay that you give this out to people? Because I want to hit up the neighbors and be like, hey, can I get your ring camera footage? I want to see what this white Elantra looks like. Of all things, how did that not leak? How did the actual fucking image of the white Elantra not leak yet? Even after they said that was white Elantra, that Steve was like, why aren't you putting out the regular car that we saw on there? And then I go back to, I'm thinking, why is Olivia telling the world right now that she told her mom that the roommates are being interviewed right now? So that's probably why they're not answering their phone. They probably took their phone. So that's like, that's why they're not. And I'm thinking, the fuck are you talking about? And she was saying that she was trying to give her mom hope. So you're lying to her? There was no article that was put out saying that the roommates were getting interviewed. That just never fucking happened. And then if no one's answering, and Olivia knows how important the first 24, 48 hours, even like the first so many hours, and like, if you would know that like that they had been dead for so long, you're already at 12 hours, like, you need to go there. You need to go to Moscow. Like, what are you guys doing? Why wouldn't they go? Now my question is Ethan's parent, like the car, like the two cars, okay? There were there was Ethan's Jeep, and then there was that Explorer, and then there was another vehicle. And they let them take the one vehicle out of there, okay? But then the other vehicle, like the Explorer, stayed. You know, and when you looked at the house, that's what you saw. You saw the vehicles plus that Explorer. Okay. Why did Hunter's vehicle stay? I don't think that arrived. I mean, like, it arrived. Remember, there were others there. As Hunter banging one of the two, and their solid alibi was Hunter Chapin. Where there was that vehicle there because they all went there earlier that day for the football game, and so they had that vehicle there, and then they just, because they had been drinking or whatever, like, they left it there. They were all the same, like, "Hey, we'll just come back and get it in the morning." You know what I mean? But why would that car, if that car just had arrived? Also, it's so close, like, you would just walk over. Like, even if you were, like, summoned over, like, you would just, just walk over. But you guys understand that Ring camera footage from the neighbors, right? Do you understand that you could watch Ring camera footage in real time? So I don't know what the relationship is with the person that lived in that house, but were they giving Steve in real time footage? Like, was he able to just watch that camera? Here's my password. Here you go. Was he able to just watch the camera from, because it's going to have everything on it. It's going to have, you can go back so many days. I mean, that neighbor's, I mean, you would just literally be, like, I didn't need to drive there. I watched it from the camera. He's an IT guy. Well, here, if you just give me your password, I can get in on my own computer and I can just, like, look at everything. What? I'm not talking about no tripods. I'm talking about the Ring camera footage of the neighbors. I'm talking about the cameras, period. I'm saying that if Olivia was to call and say, "Hey, I'm Kaylee's sister, blah, blah, blah. Do you guys have any cameras? Okay, you guys have cameras. Okay, if you give me your password, I can get in and I can start going through this footage. Like, are you cool with that? Like, I'm just trying to figure out what happened to my sister." What do you think they're gonna say? I think they're gonna say yeah, and she's probably gonna be like, you can change your password back. Like, we just really just want to go through, like, and we're all the way, like, I'm in LA, like, I can't get there. I'm in LA. I'm pregnant. Can you please help? Because that's exactly what she said she did. She said she was going through the neighbor's Ring camera footage and that she was able to come across all the stuff, right? Well, all you have to do, because they have an app, you just have to give somebody your login and your password, and then there you go. And you could ask the people, "Hey, can we change your thing to do X, Y, and Z?" But you'd be able to watch it in real time. Like, literally, when I say real time, I'm talking about as soon as the niece would have called in. Yeah, exactly, Carmen. But my question is like they would have to like do like a ton of stuff because I could see them wanting like, you know, and then I think once you would get in, you can just download shit, can't you? You could just download a bunch of shit. And if they got to all of that before law enforcement did, because did law enforcement take the DVR? Because normally when you're doing like a search warrant and stuff like that, they'll take, some people take all the hardware. So it's like, you just have to look at all angles as far as why they wouldn't go down there, why they wouldn't leave their home, why they, you know, or did they? And oh, here, Olivia, here, then you watch this. I'll go down there. You start sifting through this. You know what I mean? Here, you guys need to see this. I don't know what, you know, but that, the only way that happens though is you have to make contact. And that would mean like Olivia had to reach out, but who you reaching out to, you would need a number. You would, hey Jack, who lives there? Or you'd have to call one of like, okay, hey, we're gonna call like Kaylee's old, you know, this is Kaylee, this isn't Maddie, but Kaylee's old friends, roommate, you know, talk to them, people, anybody that you would know, you would do it all through Facebook. However, even if you don't have their numbers, you could call people from Facebook Messenger app. You could call people from Instant Messenger app. Okay, you can call people from Snapchat. Right, so you call them, and then you would say, "Hey, I need to get who has camera footage, who has cameras around there. You know, who lives here, who lives there. Like, I need you to go over there so I can talk to them, so I can get their phone number. I need to talk to them. I need to get into their app. I need to get into their stuff." And then if they got all of that, I believe that they would have just downloaded all of it. Remember, they're IT people. You guys need to get with the times. And so when you think about all of that stuff, it's what's, I don't know what their Ring camera was set to record or whatnot. But you understand that they'd have the white Elantra. If they got that stuff the way that I would think, or and then think about all these days going by and then weeks going by, and let's say that they didn't download it, and they would have to hit up the neighbors again, because guess what happened? The neighbors, they left immediately. They were getting out of there that next day. That one girl was the last one to leave. She does that interview. And so it's not like the Gonzalez to go over there on the 16th and start knocking on the doors over there, because nobody's there. They got out. They left. So in order to make contact with those people, you got to get names of who lives there. Okay, tell me who lives there. Okay, I got to call them. Okay. Hey, I only downloaded the past week. Like, wouldn't you want to go back as far as you can? Like, you'd want to go through all of that. All of that. That's like a treasure trove. But here, if Mr. Gonzalez was watching this shit in real time, or Olivia was, because they got that crazy phone call, it's just wild. But they have it all. And that's why everything to do with the Chronicles of Olivia's, that just doesn't make any fucking sense. But like even after they would have started getting the calls at like, noon or 1 about like, even after the 911 call, they would have then been able to see like everybody that would be standing around gathering. You got all the police. You got people that are going in and out there that are police. You got that Ring camera footage should have when they're removing the bodies out because of all the movement that would be going on. I don't think that they had her phone. I think that they had the cloud. I think that everything sunk to the same cloud. That's what I think. I think that they were able to like my family doesn't have any of my passwords like that. Talking about sharing family passwords, I don't think that they shared family passwords. Who the fuck knows? I don't know. I don't think they would need Kaylee's phone. I think they could do everything from the cloud. That's my opinion. That would make more sense if you had that with the cloud. But then that's the other thing that's kind of weird is like I don't know. Christy and Steve come across though as like the cool parents, like that you're like, so maybe you'd be fine with them having some stuff. I don't know. I had access to my son's cameras on his house, download the app and get the password. Exactly. Yep. And then you can watch your shit and you can watch stuff in real time. I mean, it's live. So all of that stuff that would be going on, you're just when people want to say like they could have just basically had a watch party at the neighbor's house. Let's all watch the cameras. Okay. And we'll just watch your Ring cameras and we'll all sit around the TV and see what's going on. We don't need to be standing out there. We're just gonna watch it from the camera in the house on the TV. You can log into her Apple ID and see texts. They could give her access for so many hours and then change the password and she won't be able to get in again. Yep. Yep. And guess what? As long as you would have downloaded that, if you would have downloaded that, then you would have, like when you would have got, you would try to download as much as you could. And I just think that Olivia would have been the one making all those phone calls. And so if you listen to what how they talk and they're like, things have got to change. You guys were going around knocking on, going door to door, like whatever this whole protocol stuff, I don't think it has to do with, notifying. Because it would almost be like, in a sense like this. Yeah, you sent people out here, and they didn't even get here till like, I don't even know, like let's say 7, 8, 9 o'clock. And I had already known for like 10 hours. Like those protocols need to change. We're going to do things that are, this is a family problem. And I was like, a family problem? 4 kids were stabbed. This is a family problem. And they said, it's not like we're not going to like follow the laws or whatever. There needs to be updated stuff. And then she said, there needs to be new rules because the rules that you guys have aren't working, that they're not working. And I'm like, what the fuck does any of this shit mean? What rules? The detectives didn't even get into that house until 4. The coroner wasn't in until 5. We wouldn't, like, who lives at 1122 King? You know what I mean? Nobody owns that home. So when you go put it in there, I mean, you can run all those plates and see whose fucking cars those are, to see who's how. I mean, but you'd have to ask the roommates who these people are. And I'm just hoping and praying that nothing happened to that Ring camera. That everything would be there. Because I'm telling you, we're not just talking about all these times that they say Brian was, pinging and he was over there and he was stalking, or whoever was doing it. All those Ring cameras are on there. There's nobody that got Brian's car with actually seeing his license plate this time, or him getting out of the vehicle. All those Ring cameras over there. No, like, were they able to go through any of it and find Brian Koberger? Joanne, why they hire an attorney? My family is close. We all share each other's passwords to everything: phones, accounts, emails, Alexa, Ring cameras. Interesting. Let's listen one more time.
I'm going to find a microphone and I'm going to talk to it.
But believe investigators could be missing the mark.
Imagine if you're a parent and you have pertinent information to this, like that dog, and you're asking me to just shut up. It's not going to happen. I'm going to find a microphone and I'm going to talk to it, and I'm going to tell people this is important. Whether it helps solve the case or not, how can you eat that? How could you suppress that? Something you know could help your child and help everyone in that house find justice. But you can't force them to ask you the question.
Christy Gonzalez speaks about what she believes happened in the early morning hours of November 13th.
And went in very methodical. I think he really thought it out. I think he was quick. I think it was quiet, and he got in.
All right, guys. Until next time. Peace. You guys are the best.